Most parents don't yell because they are cruel. They yell because the moment moves faster than their nervous system. A cup spills across the table. A child screams in the middle of the store. A toy breaks after you already said, "Be careful." And before your mind has time to choose patience, your body has already chosen alarm. Your chest tightens. Your jaw locks. Your voice rises. Not because you plan to hurt your child, but because your brain interpreted the moment as something that needed to be stopped immediately. This is the part of parenting people rarely talk about. Yelling often begins before words. It begins in the body. It begins in the tiny gap between what your child did and what your nervous system believes it must do next. For many parents, that gap is almost invisible. The child spills the water, and instantly, the parent sees the mess, the wasted time, the extra cleaning, the repeated warning, the feeling of not being listened to. In 1 second, the spilled cup is no longer just a spilled cup. It becomes exhaustion. It becomes disrespect. It becomes, "Why does this always happen?" And that is when the voice comes out sharper than intended. But here's the important truth. The first problem is not the child's behavior. The first problem is the speed of the parent's reaction. Because when a parent reacts faster than they can regulate, discipline turns into discharge. The child receives the parent's stress, not the parent's wisdom. And this is where the Japanese pause begins. And this pause is not dramatic. It is not a long silence. It is not a technique that makes the child feel ignored. It is something much smaller. One breath before one word. In many Japanese homes, discipline often carries a different rhythm. The parent does not always rush to fill the moment with correction. There is a small space between the child's mistake and the adult's response. A child drops something. The parent sees it. But instead of immediately saying, "Why did you do that?" or "I told you to be careful," there is a brief stillness, a quiet look, a breath, a moment where the parent returns to themselves before reaching for the child. This space reflects something deeply Japanese. The idea of ma. Ma is often described as the meaningful space between things. The pause between two sounds. The silence between two sentences. The empty space in a room that makes everything else feel calm and intentional. In parenting, ma becomes the space between reaction and guidance. It is the moment where anger does not get to be the first teacher. The parent may still correct the child. The spill still needs to be cleaned. The broken toy still matters. The rude words still need to be addressed. But the correction comes after the parent has chosen their state. That is what makes the Japanese pause powerful. It does not remove discipline. It changes the emotional temperature of discipline. Because when a parent pauses, the child feels something different before they hear anything at all. They feel that the adult is present. They feel that the mistake has not swallowed the relationship. They feel that something can be repaired. And this matters, because a child who has made a mistake is usually not calm. Even if the mistake looks small to us, inside the child, something is already happening. They may feel shocked. They may feel embarrassed. They may feel scared because they know the adult is about to react. So when a parent yells in that exact moment, the child's brain does not hear wisdom first. It hears danger. The body tightens. The face freezes. The mind stops thinking about the lesson and starts thinking about survival. How do I get out of trouble? How do I make mom stop being angry? How do I hide what I did next time? And this is the quiet problem with yelling. It can stop the behavior for a moment, but it often teaches the wrong thing. The child may learn to obey the loud voice, but they may not learn responsibility. They may learn fear, but they may not learn repair. They may learn that mistakes make love feel unsafe. This is why the pause is so powerful. The pause gives the parent a chance to lead from calm instead of stress. It says, without words, "I see what happened. I will not pretend it is okay. But I will not let my anger become the center of this moment." That is real authority, not the authority of volume, the authority of presence. Because the parent who can pause is showing the child something deeper than discipline. They are showing the child how a regulated person handles disorder. And slowly, over many small moments, the child begins to borrow that calm. Until one day, they can create it inside themselves. So after the pause, the next question is not, how do I punish this? The better question is, what skill is missing here? Because many things we call bad behavior are actually unfinished skills. A child spills water because their hands are still learning control. A child grabs a toy because patience is still growing. A child screams because words are not ready yet. A child refuses because transitions feel too big for their small nervous system. When a parent sees behavior this way, discipline changes. It stops being a battle over who has more power. It becomes a lesson in what the child still needs to practice. This is close to the Japanese idea of Shitsuke. Shitsuke is often translated as discipline. But it is not just about making a child obey. It is about shaping behavior until it becomes part of who the child is. Not through fear, through repetition, through daily actions, through small moments where the child is invited back into responsibility. So when the cup spills, the parent does not need to explode. They can pause, hand the child a towel, and say, "Let's clean it up." Not as shame, as training. The message becomes very different. Instead of, "You are careless," the child hears, "You can repair this." Instead of, "You made me angry," the child learns, "My actions have consequences, and I can help make things right." That is where responsibility begins. Not in the fear of being yelled at, but in the quiet experience of being guided back to what is right. Because the goal is not to raise a child who only behaves when someone is watching. The goal is to raise a child who slowly carries the lesson inside themselves. And this is where the pause becomes more than a parenting trick. It becomes a kind of trust. There is another Japanese idea called Mimamoru. It means to watch over while protecting, not ignoring the child, not rescuing too quickly, but staying close enough to keep them safe, and far enough to let them learn. That is what the pause does. It gives the child space to meet the moment, to see the spill, to feel the consequence, to help repair what happened. And at the same time, it tells the child, "I am still here. You made a mistake, but you did not lose me." That message matters more than most parents realize. Because children do not become responsible by feeling unwanted. They become responsible when they feel safe enough to face what they did. A yelled-at child may rush to hide. A guided child learns to return. Return to the mess. Return to the truth. Return to the relationship. So the next time your child spills, breaks, screams, refuses, or melts down, try one breath before one word. Let that breath remind your body that this is not an emergency. It is a teaching moment. Then lower your voice, slow your face, come close, and ask, "What should we do now?" Because sometimes the strongest parenting does not begin with a command. It begins with a pause. A small space where anger loses power, and wisdom has time to arrive. If this helped you see discipline differently, save this video for the next hard moment, and share it with a parent who needs to hear this today. One breath before one word. Pause. Then parent.